Howdy folks, it is Scanner here. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I want to do a bit more stuff around rules and things like that onto the channel. So we're going to have a look at the facts from the official website. I meant to do these videos as the facts were being released, but I've just been incredibly busy. The release of the Switch 2 and all those games and stuff has made my day job just super busy. So that's been taking most of my focus, and we're going to go through the first two FAQs now. And I just think it's worth kind of having a look at what people are asking and also having a look at how the developers are answering, because these are all official answers from the devs. So, question, will the book continue the use of plus-minus dice and plus to wound? Answer, a small die icon should replace the D in +1d on weapons, as folks tend to assume it means +1 damage. We are planning to have a clear separate term, injury dice, and differentiate from the injury result. This new terminology should be in the next version of the rules. So I'm curious to see how that one plays out, because I almost guarantee you people are going to get confused between injury dice and injury results, because that's just how people are. No shade. So the second question is about cover, and it's basically the person has apparently provided some diagrams. Maybe they didn't include them in the FAQ, but here's the simple rule on terrain providing cover. So the question is, are the following scenarios correct interpretations of the rules for granting cover? And the take home, with cover, with terrain giving you cover, the terrain providing cover must be positioned so that the model can hide behind it to get protection, i.e. it must be interposed between the attacker and the target. So you can't be standing in front of something, you can't be standing beside something. If you're standing in front of something, it's not going to give you any cover. You cannot be within cover distance and just claim cover by being close to something. That's actually something that kind of went around for a minute, and I'm glad to see it die. Question. The head wound injury could use some clarity. Does a model that loses the elite keyword due to a head wound lose access to any elite-only skills upgrades they had? What about injuries? Concerning equipment, is the model still able to use any elite-only item it was equipped with? And is it simply prohibited from gaining more, or must it give away all elite-only items until recovery? When a model recovers, does it regain every XP skill upgrade injury it lost, or is it considered a new elite and it starts back from 0 XP? And then they offer a revised description for the next version of the rules. This model is no longer considered elite for gaining experience, but is otherwise unaffected. It can regain this via promotion, representing recovery. In this case, the scar still remains. So yes, you won't lose your stuff, you won't have to give it away, any of that kind of stuff. You just can no longer gain experience. So, much better than what was being prophesized there. Question, are any additional blood markers inflicted by fire gas shrapnel applied before or after the injury roll? Answer, after the injury roll. All these keywords will follow this format in the next version of the rules. Shrapnel, if the success roll for an attack made with a weapon with this keyword is a success or critical success, one blood marker is added to the target in addition to any other effects of the attack after making the injury roll. The blood marker is added to the model as long as the result for the attack is a success or critical success, even if it has no other effects or is otherwise negated. So you're taking that blood marker. Just deal with it. Question, is there a limit on the number of blood markers a model can have? Answer, yes. A model cannot have more than 6 blood markers at the same time. The same applies to blessing and infection markers. 6 is your max. So I'm a firm believer, just bloodbath. Just do it. Just why shy around? Like, why wait? Are all models in warband variants that replace the mandatory leader supposed to gain the keyword leader? Assuming the answer to the previous question is yes, what happens if the leader model dies? Do I need to buy another copy of that model who gains the keyword leader, or can I give the keyword to another eligible model in the warband? Answer, yes. All these models have leader keyword in the next revision of the rules. If this model is lost, the keyword is lost with it unless you buy a replacement. So there you go. Question: can a model attack twice in melee with an automatic pistol? Answer: no, you cheeky fuck. The automatic pistol can only attack twice when used to make a ranged attack action. Although an attack in melee with an automatic pistol uses the range characteristics of the model, it is still considered a melee attack action. Cheeky gits out there. Question: at which moment can I resurrect a trench pilgrim as a martyr penitent? Answer: immediately after the trench pilgrim dies, in the injury step of the post-battle sequence, so before any exploration and chance for reinforcements. You need to have the ducats to pay for the resurrection available at that moment. I get the feeling somebody wants to do it on the field in the fight. Cheeky bastards. Question: if both warbans need to roll for morale and they have the same number of models, who rolls first? Answer: roll off to see who goes first. Generally speaking, that's a good rule of thumb. If something is not clear, if you cannot decide who should do a thing first, just roll off for it. And that at least will make it fair in the instance in which you didn't know. And then afterwards you can seek clarity if you can. Question: if an anchorite shrine has a model broken on the wheel that is still in play, can the opponent spend blood markers on the broken model to apply minus dice to the shrine's actions? Answer: yes. As stated in rules, or all rules, purposes, and attack effects such as forced movement, the two models are treated as a single model, including sharing blood, infection, and blessing markers. I'm going to assume that's a typo. It should be on all rules, purposes, and attack effects, I assume. So there's the first FAQ, and there's questions from the FAQ that I have. I don't know about you. Okay, the second one. Is the rule that prevents a model from taking the same action multiple times during an activation restricted to actions taken during that model's activation? For example, it has been ruled in Ask the Team Discord that the Black Rail Shield can be used multiple times. Is this a general rule that can be extended to all reaction type actions? Answer: yes, since the rule of the Black Rail Shield specifies this and it is not taken during the model's activation. I don't think that necessarily answers the question that was asked, because the person was asking if they can extrapolate outwards from the Black Rail Shield reaction to every other reaction. So I don't think that was necessarily answered in that instance, if I'm honest. Or you can say it was answered, the Black Rail Shield specifies this. So as long as it's specified, then it can do it. That's open to interpretation. I would get Tuomas to clean that up if I was the person who asked the original question. Question: when an ability or effect requires a model to take an action, does it mean to perform one of the four basic actions, move, ranged attack, melee attack, or dash, or is it just rolling the dice on the action success table? When a type of action is not specified, i.e. the model takes a melee attack action, then the phrase take an action means roll on the action success table. What happens in the case of a success or failure is described in the text of the effect that requires the model to take an action. There you go. If it's not specified, it's just a roll on the action success table. That's it. A model is pushed into dangerous terrain, i.e. by the knockback effect of an infernal bomb. Does it have to roll for injury immediately, counting the push as move into the terrain, or when it is activated? Answer: immediately, i.e. as soon as it enters the terrain, which makes complete sense, because if you are resolving for a potential injury, you want to resolve it before it has the opportunity to move. Like, that makes a lot of sense. Question: can models move through narrow spaces like windows? If so, can they go through gaps of any size? Answer: since all tables and terrain pieces are unique, we strongly recommend agreeing with your opponent beforehand. In general, we encourage allowing this as it leads to more cinematic games. So yes, this is what I would say. You don't need the model to be as wide as the window or anything like that. So a werewolf could get through a window that is smaller than the werewolf, but it could not get through a tiny window. You know, think about it, apply a degree of logic. If you feel there's going to be any awkward situations, try and predict them before you get to them on the table, before the game starts. And if you want to like record your rulings for certain things, because it's not like we're out here making new terrain pieces every week. You know, most of us are just playing on the same terrain over and over and over again with modular stuff so we can change how it works, but it's the same buildings and shit. So just remember or write down your house rules for different pieces of terrain, and that way, you know, there can be consistency from session to session. Alrighty, question. When a model declares a charge against multiple enemies, is a single target that is not in line of sight sufficient to cause the charge to become a risky action? Answer, no. Just a one-word answer, no. So when a model declares a charge against multiple enemies, is a single target that is not in line of sight sufficient to cause the charge to become a risky action? No. Can a downed model use a teleportation effect like coveted position during its own activation, or does that count as moving? Yes, move is a specific different action unless otherwise specified in the rules. They don't literally mean your model moves. They mean your model takes its move action. Alrighty, question. Are effects that trigger upon making an attack, i.e. Executioner's Axe, Champion, Tartarus Claws, applied during the free melee attack granted by the retreat action? Answer, rules as written. Yes, the special actions do apply unless the rules specify otherwise. However, we intend to look at this for the full rules to ensure they do not break the game. So they don't want you to be able to spam basically these effects just because people are running away from you, I guess. Question, there are 3 ways a downed model can stand up: at the beginning of its own activation, when the model goes down in its own activation and takes a risky action to stand up, thanks to the effect of items or abilities like the Medikit or the Castigator's Enforced Orthodoxy ability. Does the half movement penalty for the rest of the activation only apply to the first situation, or any or all of the others? Answer, if the model stands up outside of its own activation, the penalty does not apply. So it doesn't matter how they actually stand up, as long as it doesn't occur within its own activation, you're golden. Question, the wording of effects that ignore armor is inconsistent. Some effects, i.e. incendiary grenades, state they ignore armor. Others, i.e. anti-tank hammers, ignore armor modifiers. In other cases, i.e. the Day of His Wrath ability for the Cavalcade of the 10th Plague, armor offers no protection. Are all of these effects only referring to the armor modifiers to injury rolls, or are there any differences? Answer, yes, there are no differences. Just to avoid this kind of confusion, weapons that bypass armor will have a consistent ignore armor keyword in the full rules. And that's the fact. The important thing about these facts, and the reason why I want to highlight them, is if you have questions, go to the Discord, ask the questions in the Ask the Devs chat, and your answers will likely end up in the FAQ. If you do that, you'll get clarity not just for you, but for anybody else in the community who happens across the FAQ who was wondering the same things. Also, keep in mind, some people kind of ask their questions a little awkwardly, and sometimes the answers don't always, in my opinion, to my brain, the way my brain processes information, I'm not seeing sometimes the clarity that I wish to see in the answers. So don't get mad about it. Don't get snotty about it. Just double check again and kind of push for a little bit of clarity around your answers. That's it. These games are complicated to make. Believe me, at this point, I know this very well, how difficult it is to actually work on these rule sets and things like that. So just stay asking questions, stay polite, stay polishing shit up, and let's get as much of these issues hammered out as we can before they're printing rulebooks and sending them out to us. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you're having a wonderful week. Thank you so much for watching, and all the best.